Hello everyone, my name is Christian. Welcome back to Tekpon. Today our guest is Ken, the founding associate at Backfuture Ventures. Hello.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining, Ken. At first, please tell us what is Backfuture.
Yeah, so in short order, Backfuture Ventures is we're a VC fund investing in B2B SaaS businesses. We do that globally, and yeah, we focus on pre-seed and seed.
What is the history of the fund? How did it start? Please share more background.
Yeah, so we've been working on this for about a little over a year and a half now. This is kind of the brainchild of Alex Theuma, the founder of the SaaStock conference here in Europe. And he wanted to do this a bit earlier, but there was the pandemic, and as you can imagine, with in-person business, you kind of got to shift things around. And we happened to come across each other through a mutual connection. I did some bits and bobs for them as I was still working in startups in fintech, and he thought now was the right time. So we kind of spoke about it. He thought I'll be a good fit for it, and we kind of started in February of last year. We've really engaged with a lot of with the SaaStock community in terms of raising the fund. A lot of exited founders, operators, and kind of really just giving that give back mentality. That's really where the Backfuture comes from. Founders of the past giving back to founders, giving to founders of the future.
Nice.
So we can't really try to do that, and we built a community within our LPs or these exited founders and operators with the companies that we're investing in as well to make sure that they get the support that they need if they need it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. First of all, what types of companies are you investing into?
Yeah, so I mean, we say B2B SaaS, but that's quite broad, right? And it is really true. As B2B SaaS, we really are investing in the founders that pre-seed and seed. We believe, like many others, I'm sure, we're investing in the founder first and foremost. So doesn't have to always be exited previously, but there's some domain expertise there. There's some really just clear understanding of what they're doing. But in terms of what we've done so far, I mean, we've done deals that are in health benefits that have a SaaS angle to them. We've done one company that is focusing on tax and logistics infrastructure for alcohol brands, selling in fragmented markets, like Europe.
Yep.
And in Brazil, we've done a deal that they focus on SME restaurants in that market. So we're pretty open-minded about the deals that we approach. But as long as there's a B2B SaaS play there's some interest we'll have in it.
Okay, so it's not depending on location or industry, purely to be a B2B SaaS. And what other criteria are you looking at? Are you looking at the team, founder, revenue, metrics? What do you say is the most important for you?
Yeah. When we're talking about founders, right? We'll say we want to invest in a team with a B product, or a team with a B idea versus a B team with an A idea. Again, that's nothing about the people themselves. That's just kind of getting into what we kind of see in the team and what they're able to execute, how big they're thinking, and things of that nature. In terms of product, of course, we want to see stuff that's kind of unique in a market that we might not have always seen all that much of. That's always what's really exciting. But we'll do stuff that's in sales or benefits. We've kind of looked at that as well. But again, it always comes back to the founder and what is defining the different insight that they have there. There's always something new to be had, but why is that the case? And then market. I mean, market a lot of times at our stage is kind of an exercise in assumptions, but it's what kind of assumptions are you making? How are you looking at this? How big do you want to take this? And it really shows. I mean, like, is this like a venture scale business? Of course, you're going to do your own work into it, but you want to make sure that this is something that, can produce outsized returns, right? If everything kind of comes together, because they call it a unicorn for a reason. It's kind of hard to come to, but we want to make sure that it has a good shot for it.
And is it important for them to have a scalable revenue model?
No, of course. I mean, that's always the whole thing, right? We always exit from. There are times where in the early stage we'll have businesses that are kind of really hand-holding their customers, and it's almost like a service sometimes for how they're doing it, but that's really just to learn how the customers are using it, how they can make it better for their customers. But you need to reach a point where, even from sales-led growth or product-led growth, that these companies are kind of just coming in and onboarding and kind of just really just adding to that revenue. So yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer. You can't scale without a scalable model.
Yeah, and what do you think are the most important traits in a founder? What are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's that aspect of tenacity there. Yeah, I say kind of a chip on the shoulder, not to be quite honest. But there's two ways you can go to it. There's someone that they just know this so very well. They have the network to kind of pull it off, and they can. It's just like another Tuesday for them, but they're really just working at it. This is a lifestyle thing versus something that's just gonna clock in at 9, clock out at 5. But they're really just so adamant about getting this problem done, and sometimes I'll ask a lot of founders. I mean, why did you choose to embark on this? I mean, we see a lot of problems in the world every day, but why did you feel like I'm going to be the one to solve this? And I think you'll get a lot of that stuff from those kind of questions. I mean, there's always the VCs that'll ask about their childhood and how they grew up and things of that nature. Good signals for sure, but it's all the culmination of these signals of how they come together.
How can startups find you and apply to be invested into?
Yeah, so there's there's a few ways, right? There's backfuture.vc. There's an apply, a link right there. Obviously, there's always a way if you know someone that we're in touch with, you can always just get in contact with us through that. But also there's the SaaStock conference, and that's probably a very interesting way to get through. So SaaStock, the conference we mentioned before, they have this global pitch competition every year, well, twice a year now with Austin in the mix. We will filter down to 100 companies to really just get pitch and be judged over the course of 3 days, and that winner more than likely will be invested in. That's also like the cream of the crop, barring any big red flags. But it's kind of it's always a fun exercise. You see some really great founders, some great products, some great ideas coming through, and you really just see them shine in that respect. So.
That's amazing. And this year in Dublin, how big is the prize? And what are the investors?
Yeah, so for the past 3 years, we've invested $200K into the winners, and that's worked out really well. It's also a very flexible amount. This year, we've brought on six other partners so far, and co-investors for that. So this is, of course, still liable to due diligence, which we do ourselves as well into the pitch competition winner. But now it's $500K or up to. So it's got your T's and C's, right? So we've teamed up with some other kind of newer funds as well. This goes all like 2100 VC, which is also kind of a newer group. We have Startup Wise guys, who I think you might be familiar with.
Yes.
Venturi Capital, Pearls Capital, Beacon Capital, and Quadri Ventures, they actually co-invested with us in the last Dublin pitch competition winner, Tekpon, which does tax and logistics infrastructure for alcohol brands. So we have some new faces and some old faces come back around in a more official capacity. So it's really exciting.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious now on the other side, on LPs, investors, how do you choose the LPs? Is it a criteria there? Do you want them to be exited founders so they can help the community? How do you see it?
Yeah, I mean, there has to be always a value add there. Usually, I think for fund one, that's always kind of the same way like someone would invest in a pre-seed or seed stage company, right? You're investing in the people that are doing this, and the best people that are doing this are one that know the team that are behind it, believe in what they're doing, and know kind of the value there. So I mean, with Alex and SaaStock, right? People know him, people know the SaaStock. They've been there, and I think what's also really good about how we're going about it is there's a tangible aspect there. Some people have been to SaaStock, they've experienced it, they might have gotten something out of it. So that's kind of where that starts off. So if they're in the SaaS space, they know what it is about. So for the LPs themselves, it usually will come down to them having some background in SaaS or an operator. It's not a requisite, but it's more so they'll understand it a bit more as well. Because at the end of the day, we're there selling just like anyone else, right? So any VC, no matter what, the founders will chase the VCs for money, but then the VCs are chasing the LPs for money as well. So it's always this kind of circular thing going on.
And how can Backfuture support portfolio companies with its SaaStock infrastructure? The main advantages, I think people already know, but still it's good to mention those.
Yeah, for sure. So it's very commercially based, right? So first and foremost, the conference, right? There's distribution channels there. When we work with certain individuals, we want to make sure that, hey, you're getting stage time, you're being visible. We're helping with that. If it's valuable based on what your product is and what you're selling, then we could talk about a booth and make sure you're somewhere where you'll be getting traffic to help build that pipeline out. There's also help with our LP network as well. There's been more than a few occasions now where we'll have individuals that say, "Hey, we need help with the sales motion or putting together a sales process for large enterprise clients. Is there like, can you guys help us with that?" And we'll kind of bring some of our LPs in, kind of highlight to me that, "Hey, this is what's going on," and we're lucky enough to have them be fairly active. They'll hop in and they'll be like, "Hey, this is what you need to do X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z." The one most recently was they have an inn with a very large hospitality brand, and they said, "Hey, we just need a case study." They had the internal champion, and they said, "What is the best way to go about it?" And I've done sales and partnerships before, and I learned things from that interaction that was just a couple texts, and they put some links, some information, and how to really just go about it and how to angle it, and that's stuff that would be hard to come by, especially for a founder just starting out, and that goes across any real commercial growth or anything to that nature. So.
Yeah, I think this is really important. Do you see any trends in SaaS currently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the AI thing, right? Everything is AI, no matter what we're doing. But I guess more specifically in that, I think the big trend is, so for instance, we didn't really look into anything AI heavily last year. One, because I was going to pretend that I knew exactly what was going on in a lot of the fundamentals to really have a high conviction bet on anything there. But and I think we see how that turned out for a lot of companies when OpenAI started rolling out their GPT iterations.
Right.
But this year, after so much watching, so much learning, so many conversations, and looking into this, the application layer of AI enablement is probably where a lot of that value is going to be created, especially for funds like us who are a bit smaller and won't really be getting to those large rounds that you see that AI companies are pulling off. So yeah, while we don't have a specific equity target, it does have to make sense. And there's been some great deals that we've seen that we're like, oh, really exciting, but then we will look at how this comes out from a financial standpoint. It's like we can't really justify getting into this. So right now, there's a few companies that we're looking at where the core product is there. It's very niche, and there's some expertise that's going behind it, but there's AI that's really enabling this to 10x what this company would be able to do otherwise. And that's kind of what I'm seeing most of. That's kind of what we're a bit more open to versus these large AI plays that are kind of going around, £8 million or dollar seed rounds going around. And that's just not a space where we'll be able to play.
Yeah, I totally understand. And so, what do you say to a founder looking to fundraise now?
Well,
how can they prepare basically?
I'll speak in absolutes here, not relative. We are in summer now, 2024. So the European VC is the VC summer thing is well in effect. I've seen some out of office emails myself, but it seems to be less more so than before. But one thing I'll always say for early stage founders when they're speaking with VCs outside of the summer is, there's many companies that see like this is logical. This makes sense. I don't really have one way or the other as to why this is not a good idea. But there's the missing aspect there is the why should I care? And I think that's what a lot of founders kind of miss in that pitch scenario. That's one thing I see it's kind of different between like the US and European, like both VCs and founders. There's much more of a storytelling element there. And a lot of times that will translate into the commercial aspects of it as well, because if you're able to sell me very well and sell me the vision, I understand the mission. Of course, this is beyond like the logic of what this product is. That translates into founder-led sales. How are you going to get those first clients on? How are you going to convince them to take the risk on the product, depending on what it is, or give the time to it? How are you going to hire the right team? How are you going to get the right cap table together? So all these things tie together in how you're really selling this initial pitch for the business, and how you can extrapolate that. So I think getting that together first and really refining that is how you'll really get that early stage traction to having those initial VC conversations.
And I'd like to chat more about this difference between US and Europe in founders and VCs. What's your take on that? Because you invest in any, right?
Yeah, we invested what? I'm sorry.
Any market.
Yeah. So we could do any market realistically. We just want to make sure we have the right partners on the ground. So, for instance, in Brazil, we have some partners that are heavy. They're one of the top performing VCs out there, and like when they knock, we always answer because we respect the relationship, and we also, of course, we respect them as well. Um, but in terms of I guess the European and US side of things. Um, and anyone tell you, I think from the VC side, I think what I've seen is most of the VCs, and I'm sure you'll hear this anywhere else. Um, the VCs are mostly ex-founder, ex-operator, whether they exited or not, that doesn't really matter all the time. But they'll be the ones that are usually behind the decision-making process of sourcing, doing the ICs, and because they kind of understand a bit more what's going on in the early stage. In the early stages, there's very little financial analysis that could go into this process of underwriting a deal. See, like with later stage is fine. I mean, there's enough data there to say that. In
Yes.
Europe, it's not so much, where you're seeing a lot more corporate background banking consultants who are kind of getting into that space. Um, I'm not saying one is better than the other. That's my personal opinion, but I think the returns kind of speak for themselves in that regard. And from the founder side of things, America is a place of stories, right? Even though we're very young, it is very much just one big storytell. And you can see that in the founders. There's really understanding about how they're selling this product and how they build hype around it. It also helps that there are very strong hubs in Silicon Valley for that. New York is actually becoming a very big market as well. Really bringing a lot of VCs. A lot of founders are going there now. We actually just committed to a deal. We actually have done a deal in New York already. We've committed to another deal in New York, and we're in the process of closing out as well. So, I mean, it's definitely growing in that regard. But I think Europe is also kind of coming to shape in terms of how they're doing their VC population, how founders are going about putting their stuff out more so than there was before, I believe.
Okay, and I'd also like to know your background, your story, and how you started your career before
Yeah,
meeting
for sure.
Alex.
Yeah, before meeting Alex. So myself, I'm from New York. I had done some time as a journalist, managing editor for a magazine based out of Brooklyn, focused on art and culture. I always loved like being on the ground, being on the mix of things, which again translates to what I do now, doing early stage investments. And I kind of had this choice to go do my undergrad, and at that point, I did my undergrad, was involved in a lot of things extracurricular wise, but then I kind of fell in love with banking in that process. So when I graduated, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go into a bank. That'll be great." I had this idea of a bit of an ideologue at the time. I said, "Hey, you know, I want to democratize financial services, financial literacy," and then but then you quickly realize that's not the place to go for that type of thing. And at that time, there was a fintech coming up in New York called Better.com.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I really learned about startups and like, okay, this is like a thing that's going on. These people are doing big things. It seems really cool and making an impact as well. And I think that was
Yeah.
kind of where at the time it's what it looked like. So that was kind of after 2 years of banking, the pandemic hit. So I had deferred my master's for 2 years, and I said I wasn't sure. And they said if you don't come now during the pandemic, you're not going to get your scholarship again. So after being abroad during my undergrad, spent some time in Asia. I said I want to go abroad again. So my two options were either Dubai or London. So if I'm going from banking into fintech, financial services, big in New York, but it's also big in London. So it made sense to just kind of make that jump. So when came here, I did 2 masters consecutively. I also spent time working for 2 fintechs. One of them was payment orchestration, worked as a commercial operator there. That was bootstrapped. And then the second one was a Swedish fintech where I joined a little bit after seed, but saw them through Series A, Series B, which came very rapidly in that very frothy period. Also, again, as a commercial operator. But it was also really interesting to see how a huge influx of capital can shape a business, both for good and bad, right? And those are kind of lessons that kind of stayed, and you can kind of extrapolate and see when you see that the effects of that bring it all the way back to when you see a company at the pre-seed or seed stage. So these are the things that you should probably look into, consider this. Not to say an expert, But if you see it once, I mean, it's surely not the only time. And you see these stories kind of play out in other startups as well, especially after we've gone through 22, 23, and now 24.
Thank you so much for sharing. Do you have a favorite software that you use, a favorite SaaS?
Favorite SaaS, probably the one I use every day. It's called Adio.com. It's a CRM, and I've just used it nonstop. Like they have a freemium model, and I was like kind of the entry into it, and yeah, I just really appreciate that CRM. I've used a bit for the scale that we're at. HubSpot's there, but we're not, for the VC side of things, we're not big enough for like an affinity, so to speak, right? I could have gone the easier route and chosen one of our portfolio companies, but I'm sure they get enough love as it is. But yeah, give some an honorable mention to our portfolio company.
How do you make the decisions on deals?
Yeah. So yeah, as I mentioned, our tickets aren't the largest that will be in a deal. So I try to take most of that load of work onto myself versus kind of put it on the founders. So it's pretty straightforward. I mean, there'll be a few conversations and, looking at things, product and everything up to a certain point. There'll be a mini IC you could kind of say between myself and Alex and say, hey, this is what I've been talking about, among some other deals. What do you think about this? Do we have interest here? He'll probably have some questions about it, but we kind of make a decision about, is this something that kind of excites us and we'll move forward with it? If it's not, then we'll kind of just say, hey, thank you for the time, but this might not be something for us, right? But we try to come to that point fairly quickly. If that's something we do move forward with, I take the time to kind of really produce a memo where kind of really just running through things, go a little back and forth with the founder. And then at that point, Alex will speak to the founder, I'll speak to the lead investor, and then we'll come back together for a more in-depth conversation about where we sit with the business. But during that period, we'll also have our LPs who are kind of just across the spectrum in terms of verticals. So we'll kind of pick them out and say, hey, we're looking at this. What are your thoughts on this from your experience? X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z.
Nice.
So it's always good to have a bit of a more than two heads on the deal. But in a perfect world, this could be done in about a week, right? But once you get people in the mix, it takes a bit longer. But sometimes you've come to a rapid decision, which has been nice, but sometimes it's just taking a bit longer. And I think one thing that we've been proud about, right, is we've been able to commit to deals before a lead has come in. But we only wait to complete the deal when the lead is in, round is done, boom. But we can say this is something we're backing. That's kind of it. So just and then we'll help with the finding of that lead, filling out the rest of the round. We try to be that active partner in that regard. So
I think that's great, and it's really needed. I love your approach as a community.
Yeah, we have to do it. We have to do it. But yeah, one day at a time.
Okay. Yeah, I guess this was the episode. Thank you very much for joining, Ken. And I wish you the best of luck. See you soon on SaaStock Dublin. And really excited. Thank you for building this for the SaaS community.
Well, Pete, gotta say thanks to Alex. I'm just here to facilitate and help out as much as I can. But no, thanks for having me, man. It's been really great, and looking forward to sharing a Guinness in Dublin.
Thank you so much.